All right. So we'll get going because we want to make sure we respect everyone's time, especially on a Friday. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today for our You Landed an Interview. Now what? It's going to be a workshop on giving you tips for a successful internship interview, especially since our growth sector team is very much aware and has been chatting a lot with employers and have gotten tidbits from them and just feedback. And so we want to make sure we share this with you so that way you can put your best foot forward in your interviews that are going to be coming up very, very soon around the corner. So in today's workshop, we're going to be, again, kind of going over the why we're doing this, steps on how to prepare for your interview, a couple things to do for your post-interview. We're also going to be sharing a workshop survey, which if you fill out, you will be entered into a raffle to be able to win a gift card from us. Your feedback is very important, so if you could participate, we'd greatly appreciate it. And then we will open up for Q&A at the end. Okay, so as I briefly mentioned, one of the big reasons that we are hosting this workshop is because we've definitely been doing this for a couple years now, and the internships over the summer and just how many we've had over the past couple summers have grown exponentially. We've been in talks with our employers, getting feedback, and just through the whole entire process of, when we send over resumes, what they're looking for, their feedback after they interview you guys. And so we definitely take note of this and we want to share it with you because, again, we want to make sure that you all put your best foot forward and can just have the best chance when you are interviewing with the employers. Because as a reminder, if you get selected for a second round interview, that is with the employer, not with growth sector anymore, but with the actual employer. And so keeping in mind that you could be interviewing with someone from HR, or you could be interviewing with someone who's been in the industry for 30 plus years. There's such an array of different people that you may come into contact with if you get selected for that second round interview. So again, we just want to make sure that you are prepared. And again, this is not just tips for, this internship interviews, but any interview opportunity, really. It's just some good practices to keep in mind and put into use for your future references. And again, it's just a good refresher for you all. So, research. Oh, was that you, Rebecca? I'm sorry.
Awesome. So right before you get into your interview, you really want to prepare. So the first step is doing your research. You don't want to show up unprepared, not knowing what the company does. So a really good place to start, I like to recommend glassdoor.com. Pretty transparent. You're able to kind of funnel and filter through like salaries, reviews, benefits, all that good stuff. It really just sits in one place. So you really want to go ahead and look into what their history is, who founded it, what their mission statement is, and then really important, personally, I really want to see if their values align with me. So do some research, maybe even look at their Instagram, what the vibe is like, so that way you know what it is that, you're going to be facing when you hop on screen. And especially research who you're going to be interviewing. Now, it may not be applicable necessarily for our interviews, but if you do get their name, go on LinkedIn, look them up, see what they're about, what their interests are. It'll help you bring up some speaking points and be relatable. So just take some time, a little bit of research does go a long way during the interview, and they could tell. So, come prepared.
Can I just add in one thing? Thanks for that,
Yeah.
Rebecca. I was just also going to note that for a lot of the STEM core internships, you might not have, or you likely will not have a position description. So you don't always know exactly like what you're applying for. And that's okay. I think just having an idea of like who the company is as a whole, and a plug for our STEM core YouTube channel, a lot of the employers that you're going to be interviewing with have come on to talk to you all probably in the fall semester. So I suggest going on to that YouTube channel. For instance, if you get an interview with Caltrans, Caltrans has done a number of talks with our STEM core students, right? So being able to refer to some of the things that they talked about to help prepare you for your interview is always a good idea.
Definitely. Thank you for that, Cheryl. Then we could hit our next slide over. So kind of how Cheryl mentioned, that internship description, it may not be there for the next round with growth sector necessarily. But again, we want to keep this open. I know some folks are also applying to other internships outside of our network. So just to have the information at hand, definitely look at those descriptions. What you want to do is go through, zone in on the keywords, or even similar experience that you may have that they're looking for. Like I said, when you do that research, it definitely brings up more talking points, just so that you reassure yourself that you're in alignment. And then your resume, you want to go over your resume, definitely highlight those key skills, experiences, or personal projects that are very relevant to the company or field. And then remember why you would be a good fit for the company. Really hype yourself up, nail down your pitch so that you feel confident in front of that screen. Have those copies at hand. The upper hand that you guys get is that majority of these interviews will be done virtually. Sweet. You have a whole screen that you can minimize other tabs, other screens, and fit it all so it's in front of your face and you don't get lost in the sauce when, you have the interviewer in front of you. So again, just take a little bit of time, get in front of the screen, look at yourself, smile, practice it out. And yeah, next slide.
Yeah. And kind of even growing that a little too. As we mentioned, if you can print out a copy of your resume and have it there with you, already pre-highlight, or star little things that you just want to make sure that you hit upon in your interview, that's always a good help, especially for those moments where you maybe feel like lost in thought because you got nervous, or you just get a little flabbergasted. Again, that always helps me keep me on track, having that resume in front of me. And just, again, don't go highlighter crazy, but definitely highlight like key things or projects that you want to make sure that you bring up and you talk about. And also, I sometimes also take notes on my copy of my resume that I have with me during an interview. So again, it's I've never had an experience where they're like, don't have this paper out. But in this case, again, you guys are going to be in front of a camera and not in person. And so that's kind of, use it to your upper hand. All right, so preparation. You want to make sure, and again, don't do this like 5 minutes before. If you can, a day or two before, make sure that you set up your space for your interview. You want to make sure that you're going to know the day and the time and everything. So it's not like you can't prepare. Make sure that you are in a room where it's quiet, that if you're going to be in your bedroom, if you don't want to use a Zoom background, make sure that your room is picked up, right? Preferably if you can do an interview, obviously that's on camera, use a blank wall, or if you don't have a blank wall, take some time to create a Zoom background, right? You can blur your background, you can create a virtual background, something that's not too busy. Again, just to help keep the focus for the interviewer. I can tell you, even just by my experience, having interviewed so many students over the last couple of years, when I'm meeting with someone virtually, which is 99.9999% of the time, it is a bit distracting when you are in a room and I see either people walking by, or, I'm not gonna lie, guys, I have sometimes seen, messy beds with a pile of clothes in the background. So let's try to avoid that, make sure that we're just set up, looking our best, putting our best foot forward. And again, just making sure you're setting yourself up for success. If you're like, Myra, I don't really have a quiet place in my room because I live with 5 other people, I totally understand that. Trust me. Then maybe think about thinking ahead and finding a quiet spot, either like going to your local library or your campus library and reserving a room. Or, I've seen some students do interviews outside. Obviously, as long as you're kind of in a quietish area, that's always a plus too. So again, you want to make sure you prepare your space. And then definitely make sure to avoid having to reschedule. This again has happened on our end. And while it's not, super detrimental, at the same time, it's not the best of looks. Make sure that when they give you, your time or you select your time for interview, you know, if you have to block it off on your calendar, whether that be a planner or your online calendar, or set a reminder on your phone, make sure you clearly have it maybe in a couple different places as a reminder. Okay. You want to make sure that you try to avoid having to cancel last minute or anything like that. And another thing too that I have noticed, actually not so much this year, but definitely last year, was sometimes I would catch students, they would show up to the interview, but they would be walking to class, or they just got out of class and they would start their interview. Super distracting. Again, you want to make sure that if once you set up your interview, you're sitting down, you know, you're prepared. Think of it as, even though it's a virtual interview, think of it as being an in-person interview. Okay. Again, it just kind of looks as if this was kind of out of the whim and you're just, again, walking to your car, or, you know, so on and so forth. So it just not the best of looks. So really try to prepare beforehand to be ready for your interview.
Myra,
Cheryl or Rebecca?
yep, I was just gonna mention one thing that we didn't know was your internet speed as well. Maybe checking that out. Nobody's saying that you have to have like the top of the line internet, but if you're gonna go to like a new area, like, oh, look, I'm gonna sit in the quad in this quiet area. What's your signal like? Are you going to be able to hear your interviewers? Is there going to be a huge lag? Remembering that your first round was with somebody from growth sector. We are educators. We know you. We are rooting. I mean, everybody's rooting for you. But round two, we're not trying to scare you at all, but you're also going to be with somebody who's coming from industry, so a little bit different, right? So if we're like, okay, we know the student is probably in the quad, like we're on campuses, we understand, it's going to be a little bit different. So just being as prepared as you can, especially with that internet speed, because if they can't understand your answer to a question, you can't hear their question, all of that can just distract you.
Yeah. And you know what? I can't think off the top of my head. I feel like we do have it somewhere in the slide, but in case I do say it later, it'll just be a reminder. But in case we don't, and definitely make sure you check those Zoom links. I can't tell you how many times I've received emails from students who have said, I can't find the Zoom link. And then I'm able to forward them the email that had the Zoom link. So again, you want to make sure, prepare. A day before, 2 days before. I would maybe do it 2 days before. Find that Zoom link where you have that you're going to be using for your interview. Test it out. Make sure you know where it is, where you can find it in your email easily. If you need to star it, if you need to flag it, whatever. Again, just make sure you have that at hand. You don't want to be the last minute, you can't find it, or you're having issues. And don't get me wrong, sometimes things happen. You know, we've all gone through technical difficulties, and that's totally understandable. If that does arise the day that you have your interview, I would also make sure to send an email to your interviewer or to your contact, because it's happened several times, at least with me, where I give students usually 10 minutes, which is a lot more than other people do, just FYI. But I give them 10 minutes, and after the 10 minutes, if a student doesn't show up, okay, then I consider them a no-show. And I usually follow up an email and let them know, hey, like if you'd like to reschedule them, please do so. But sometimes I don't hear anything from a student. I don't hear why they didn't show up or what happened. If technical difficulties do arise, make sure you connect with the person who you were supposed to meet with, and just let them know. Again, sometimes things happen and that's understandable, but definitely make sure you communicate. Communication is key. You don't want to have your lack of response come off as you don't care. Again, because that's definitely not a good look, right, with an employer. So just things to think about. Let's see here.
Myra, before you go on, can I just say I'm getting a lot of side questions from students asking or minorly freaking out. I haven't gotten an interview yet. Does that mean I wasn't selected? It doesn't mean you weren't selected. We're super early in the process still. There are a couple of employers who have worked ahead of schedule, but majority of them are planning to interview selected students in March. So if you haven't heard anything, it's okay.
Yeah. And no worries, guys. If you have questions that pop up while we are going through the workshop, no worries, stick them in the chat. We'll make sure to get to them. We're going to have I'm pretty sure we'll have plenty of time for you to answer your questions, so no worries, but great question. All right. So, and then don't miss an opportunity. Wait, is the, yeah. Okay. I always tell students this too. There's always that moment in the interview where an interviewer will say, "Do you have any questions?" Don't waste that opportunity. You know, I always take that, especially when you're interviewing with an employer, to have a couple questions in the back of my pocket ready to go. Again, 3 to 5 questions. And again, you can write them down on a paper, have them ready in front of you. But I would, in essence, research potential interview questions regarding either the position that you know that you are possibly going to be placed in, or you know, asking your interviewer a question. If maybe if they introduce themselves and give a little background about themselves, you can ask them that, or tap in a little deeper. You know, it's just a good practice to have instead of saying, "No, I'm good." Again, and if you have any burning questions that you know are directly related to the employer, definitely ask them there. And also, it's a good idea to practice answers to common interview questions like, "Tell me about yourself and why are you interested in this role with our company?" Or "What are your strengths and weaknesses?" I can tell you right now, right off the bat, the strengths and weaknesses question is a question that students always stumble with. And it's hard. If you think about like being on the spot and someone asking you, "Well, what are your strengths or what are your weaknesses?" Again, take some time to think about those things. So again, it's not a guarantee that you're going to be asked by an employer, but definitely have those in your mind. And also thinking about like your skill set and projects. That's always a big one too. Employers want to know, what you've been exposed to or what your interests are. Again, think about your answers to those so you're not kind of fumbling when you are asked it in an interview. All right.
Awesome. And then we have some interview question examples for you guys. So really the time is for you guys to be able to just get some more transparency, really dig, deeper than the surface to try to understand maybe what the company culture is, what the day-to-day responsibilities are. So one of the main ones that you can ask is, can you elaborate on the day-to-day responsibilities this job entails? What are the characteristics of someone who would succeed in this role? What does the career path for someone in this role look like? The career path one is a really good one because it kind of demonstrates that you're bought in, that you see yourself there long term, that you want to, take on leadership, that you want to grow onto your responsibilities. So that's a really good one to ask there. And then what do you like best about working here? It really gives a interviewer an opportunity to share about themselves a little bit more. You might be able to get them to talk about some of the things that they do, outside of their work tasks and just in the work environment. So again, do your research and then really be curious about what it is that you want to know about either the person that's interviewing you or just the company as a whole or the role. Cool. Next slide. All right. I really, really wanted to share the STAR method with you guys. I recently came across this method at a Engineering for Diversity conference, and I really wanted to put it in front of you guys because sometimes when you get put on the spot and you're not ready necessarily to answer the question, you can go off on a tangent, and then you end up like sitting there like, did I answer your question? So this tool here is literally meant to help you if you are in those situations. So what is the STAR method? So again, it's a way of effectively storytelling. So you want your story to be direct, logical, meaningful, and personalized so they can see, a little bit more of who you are through your answer. So again, what you want to do is to prepare your answer, you want to listen to the question, think of an event you want to plan and organize in about 5 to 8 seconds. And then you're going to go ahead and structure it by letting them know what the situation was. You're going to provide context and background. And then the next step would be the task at hand. So describe the problems and the challenges. Then you want to hit them with the action, what it is that you did. How did you solve it? So give like tangible examples there, and then followed by the results, really highlight what it is that you did. What was the impact? If you have numbers to share, throw those in there. So it really gives you a better structure and walks you through to get you to the end result, and hopefully, really answer their question. And then don't think of new questions as you go along, really say what you had planned for and end it there. Again, trying to avoid going off on a tangent is the goal of the STAR method.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, Rebecca.
Of course.
All right. So moving into dress. This I think is also very important because again, we want to make sure that we are putting our best foot forward, and showing up like you care, showing up and just again showing a level of professionalism, to really show these employers. Again, I mean, as you know, a lot of the typical STEM internships are usually for junior seniors at the university level. And I think one really awesome part of being in the STEM core program is we work with employers who see just the awesome students that are at our community colleges and want to give students at the community college level a chance, right? First year, second years, third years. And so again, with that being said, we just want to make sure again that you're showing up and looking like $1,000,000, because again, even though it's not going to cost you $1,000,000, but you just want to make sure you show up and just show that level of seriousness and excitement, and just again professionalism. So with that being said, when in doubt, I like to err on the side of, a bit more formal, right? Again, you always want to be one notch above, just because, again, you just never know what kind of situation you're going to be in. With that being said, for men, I would suggest, if you can do, and you don't necessarily have to do a suit. I'm not saying to go out and buy a suit. If you have a suit, great. Navy, black, dark gray, whatever. If you have it in your closet and you haven't worn it in a minute and you're like, you know what, I should bust this out, dust it off a little. And again, put it on just with, a button-up shirt. That would be great. If you don't have that, again, no need to worry. You do not need to go run out and buy anything. If you have a long sleeve shirt, button up with a collar, that's either wide or color, that's always great too. A tie is, it's always nice, but not necessary. Again, the whole point is making sure that you look neat and professional. And same goes with your hairstyle, believe it or not. Again, we have all sorts of different hairstyles, and I think that's great. Again, just making sure that we're not looking like we rolled it out of bed. You know what I mean? Sometimes we have seen that. We have had even students tell us, I literally just rolled out of bed. I'm like, oh, okay. Again, you just want to make sure you put in some time to, again, just make sure that you look awesome and professional. For women, a blazer. I love blazers. They're kind of like my power outfit, right? If you have and actually I take this back, suit, skirt, or slacks, obviously they're not going to see your bottom half, right? So if anything, maybe just worry about the top up. But if you have like a coordinated blouse, or you want to do a solid colored dress or a sweater, that's always a good way to go. I liked this quote that I found: channel your inner Meghan Markle for interviews and leave your Lady Gaga inspired outfits for the weekends. Again, it's just less is more. Again, we want to avoid distractions and everything. And again, just put in that professional vibe out. However, if how you typically dress doesn't conform to a traditional gender norm, no worries. Again, your interview attire shouldn't have to either. Again, the key is that you want to find clothing that is polished, professional, and a fit for the company that you're interviewing with. Now, I do like to know, it might be different once you start your actual internship, right? Say you start off and it's your first week, it's your first day there, and you come up and you're a bit more professionally dressed, and you look around and you're like, oh, everyone's in jeans and and, you know, collared shirts or jeans and, you know, t-shirts, or you look around, right? That's okay. Do not feel weird about it. I would say if after your first day at your internship, talk to your supervisor, talk to your mentor, and ask them what the dress code is or what they expect from you. But at least if you show up that first day looking like $1,000,000 and professional and ready to go, again, it's better to be a little more overdressed than underdressed, I would say. With that being said, you might be like, Myra, I don't even know what this looks like. So we have provided some visuals for you all. And again, I hope this provides a good context and just some ideas so that way you can start thinking about what you can wear for those interviews or even your first day of your internship. We call this the smart casual. Again, as you can see, for the man here, he doesn't have a tie. And he has, it looks like some neutral, like chinos, chino pants. Again, nothing too fancy, but it's still put together. It's still, this is still acceptable like in an office or in a workplace setting, right? Same with this person here, the woman, right? She has a collared shirt. She has some what are they, like just chinos or corduroy pants? Again, flats, again, looking just put together. Nothing too extreme, but again, still showing a good level of professionalism. Rebecca, if you want to jump on this one.
Yeah, and then just to note, so same from the last one, same with this one, we want to avoid denim. So sticking to some kind of dress pants, it really like dresses it up a little bit. And then what makes it more business casual is that they have a blazer on, right? So something like even a cardigan, a blazer for the male and for the woman, really just levels it up a little bit more. Same thing, some classy dress shoes there, hair put together. Ultimately, you know, sticking to the look good, feel good motive. So really, you know, clean cut there and showing up ready to go.
Yeah. And then the third one is business formal. I would say this. This is probably like a full suit, you know, with suit and tie and everything. To be honest, I don't think that's necessarily necessary, but I still wanted to show you this example. Again, just for future reference. Many of you might be transferring, you know, after this year, or, you know, and you don't know what the maybe the next step is going to be after this year, a job or something of the sort. Again, just want to show this to you as an example. So for future reference. Again, our students don't necessarily need to go to this level, but again, this is a very nice way of looking professional, the full suit, you know, the formal attire for the women. Again, you can do the suit pants, you can do a suit skirt, you can do a dress with the blazer, the collared shirt. Again, this is more considered business formal. And again, just a little grain of nugget to have in your brain for later on. All right.
And then be resourceful. You know, we're not asking you guys to go to the Macy's in town and get the most expensive, you know, business casual or smart casual attire. Make it work, you know, make it work for yourself. Talk to your friends. If you still fit your mom's clothes, dig into her closet. That's always a gem. Check out local thrift stores too. You know, you can always come up on some really good finds at a really good deal. Locally, there's a lot of thrift stores. Goodwill is one of the most common ones. So tap in, you know, tap into your network. Again, friends, if you can just ask, hey, can I borrow a blazer just for the Zoom? Literally 30 minutes. I'm not even going to move or sweat in it. I'm sure they'll help you out. So, you know, tap into your network, you guys, and show up ready.
Yeah. Again, you can look like $1,000,000 without spending $1,000,000.
Exactly.
All right. So, just kidding. Punctuality. Again, this is a very big one. I know it can be a pet peeve of a lot of people in the professional world. Again, I'm always about being respectful of other people's times. You don't know everyone's schedule. Sometimes, as you know, in the email that we even send you guys out for your first round interview, we specifically state in your email that you have a 20-minute window to interview with us. So if you're showing up 10 minutes late, that knocks you down to 10 minutes that we may have to rush or not even be able to ask you everything because we may already have another interview lined up right after you. And it's not fair that because you showed up late, we cut into the other person's time, right? So again, you don't know how the setup is if you get selected for a second round interview. So make sure that if you have, once you have your appointment, show up on time. Before you start, make sure that your technology is working, and the link is ready. You're able to identify it. Again, you don't want a last minute glitch to hold up the process. However, we all know life happens, things happen. Again, if that does happen, make sure you email the person. And arrive early, whether it's in person or online. I would arrive if it's online, obviously, which will be the majority for you, 5 minutes early. It's, wait in the waiting room or wherever they have you. If they haven't showed up yet, that's fine, but arrive 5 minutes early. Again, it just, you can avoid glitches. And if it's in person, 15 minutes early. Again, it doesn't hurt to wait around a little. You never know if you have to go in person to an interview, if there's going to be traffic or if there's an accident or something of the sort. You always want to make sure that you give yourself time. You don't want to be running in late and then you're a bit kind of thrown off. And then that can possibly affect your interview as it starts. All right. Now, things to keep in mind. You want to make sure that as you are speaking to in your interview, keep in mind these things. And I'm guilty of this first one, ums. Even when I'm asking questions, sometimes I'm like, so what do you think of this? What do you, So you want to make sure that you avoid those ums and uhs, right? Buy yourself time by repeating the interviewer's question if in order to avoid those ums. You can also use a phrase like, oh, that's an interesting question. If you're asked a question and you need a second to think about it, instead of saying, again, think of another phrase that you can use to buy you some time. Okay. You want to also make sure to keep your answers concise and focused. See, there we go. I use the word up. But I have interviewed a couple well, not a couple, throughout the years. It's been a lot. But at times I find them, they will go off on tangents, and I don't say anything at the moment because I do want to see if you're able to bring yourself back into the moment, or if this is something that happens throughout the interview. And as if and if you've interviewed with me, I always like to give feedback to students. Again, not to make anyone feel bad or anything. It's more so just pointers, so that way you can keep in mind when you go to interview with a company. But if I have, given you that feedback to make sure to stay focused and not go off on tangents, really just think about if you need a second when you're asked something, if you need a second just to kind of digest that question and then give your answer, then do that. But again, you want to make sure to try to keep yourself in check and focus in on that question and not go off, because again, it might be a timed interview where they only have a certain amount of time to be asking you questions and then they have to move on. And so you don't want to get hung up on 2 questions and then they won't be able to ask you the rest because you've used all your time on that. So again, just kind of keeping yourself in check. And then respond truthfully to the questions asked. While it can seem tempting to embellish your skills and accomplishments, interviewers can find honesty refreshing and respectable. Remember, some employers can possibly test to see if you can actually perform the skills on your resume. So again, basically do not lie. Prime example, I was talking to Rebecca the other day and I said, oh man, this one time I had an interview and I put on my skills list that I knew Excel. And while I know that I have told a lot of you, like if you're familiar with Excel, you don't have to be an expert or anything, but if you know Excel, go ahead and put on your resume. But after this experience, I like to put my levels, right? Whether I'm a beginner, advanced, intermediate, because I specifically am traumatized by this moment in time where I was called to an interview and they asked me about, oh, you listed that you know Excel. And I said, oh yeah, I'm pretty comfortable with Excel. When in reality, I was like beginner, right? And then right after that, I was meeting with the head of the department or that division. I forgot what it was. And they basically called me out and they said, "Oh, so what is the equation or whatever, or the formula that you need to add blank and blank columns?" And I basically looked like a deer in headlights, right? Because I didn't know. And again, that's more so, intermediate, I guess you would say, knowledge of Excel. And again, I could have said I'm a beginner in Excel, but I didn't. And I tried to like sell myself a little better when I ended up getting caught. So again, avoid that Myra's mistake and be honest and truthful with your skill set. Again, keeping in mind that these employers know that you may be a first year, a second year, and so that you're still learning, and it's okay that you don't know everything. Again, a lot of these employers are willing to work with you guys and teach you things. So it's not the end of the world if you don't know a specific program or skill set, or if you're not an expert. They're not expecting you to be.
Yeah, I think rule of thumb too, honesty is the best policy. I think sometimes students throw around the whole term of fake it till you make it. Certain scenarios, not this one, probably not the
Yeah.
interview, keep it as real as you can and, be authentic. Have that confidence within yourself. I think confidence really stems from knowing that you know that and not faking it. So be confident in yourself and your strengths. Again, practice, remind yourself what it is that you bring to the table, have all that in front of you, have your resume in front of you so that you can reflect, you can refresh, you can remind yourself while you're on camera. And again, smile, practice smiling, take some time before your call and just look in the mirror, like, get comfortable with yourself and your smile and, give your speech in front of yourself so that you can kind of analyze areas that you can improve on. And then win them over with your authenticity. Again, honesty is the best policy. Show up as your authentic self because you don't want to show up being somebody that you're not. And then when it really comes down to, being in person or, actually working with these people, they're going to eventually find out, your true self. So it's best to just show up as your true self from the jump. And then showing that positivity with your smile, upbeat body language throughout the call really makes a difference. Keep that vibe light, try to connect. I think really positive interviews are actual conversations and less like Q&A sessions. So if you can get it to the point where it's like a flowing conversation, cool. That's the sweet spot that we want to aim for. So keep that also in mind.
Thank you so much for that. And again, kind of staying on that positivity train, make sure you keep negativity out and think about your vibe. Believe it or not, I've talked to employers, and one thing that they always mention is, this student didn't seem very interested, or this student just seemed kind of meh. This student, the vibe was just, they didn't seem excited to want to learn or to be part of this internship. And so honestly, I would make sure you keep that in mind. I'm not saying to, you have to be at 1,000% and be like, super just like kind of everywhere with your energy, right? But at the same time, you want to make sure that you do seem excited about this, right? Employers have said that when they look at the different candidates that they have, this one candidate A may have a great skill set, but their vibe was just not there. They didn't seem excited. There was just something that they weren't connecting with over candidate B, who, yeah, maybe they had less of a skill set, but they just seemed excited to want to learn and be part of this. So keep that in mind. They do look at energies and just vibes of the student. So again, make sure you pay attention to that. And then one other thing to also note too is don't bring any baggage into the interview room. If they are looking at your resume, and this also for maybe not so much for our type of interviews, but even for future interviews, if you have maybe a not that great experience with the former employer or another company, don't complain about another company or even personal circumstances. Again, it can sometimes place the interviewer and the interviewee in an awkward kind of position. And then also it can kind of leave a bad taste in people's mouths, right? Like if you're complaining or talking about, a bad experience you had to this new employer, what can maybe we expect if things don't work out, or once you leave from here that you won't do the same. So again, just keep that in mind. You don't want to speak negatively about things. And the next part, well, I kind of already talked about, so I'll skip that right there. Or actually, no, sorry, change a negative to a positive. If many employers do ask, right, about, oh, can you tell us about a challenging situation? In that case, yeah, go ahead and bring something up, but you always want to make sure that you include a mention of how you help to solve a problem and what you learned to make yourself a better employee or intern or whatever. So if you are asked about, again, a situation, turn a negative into a positive.
Awesome. And then after the interview, you want to definitely ask, what are the next steps? Some interviews, not ours necessarily, but some interviews may have a second round. They may have a third round, maybe even a fourth round, depending on what the industry looks like. So it's good to just, give yourself that clarity and just confirm from the jump while you have them in front of your face, and you can get that answer right away so you can take the next steps after the call. But also that way, if you already know who you'll be meeting with, if the next steps are, oh, we're going to be interviewing so-and-so for the next 3 weeks, you should expect to hear back from us from a month from now. Then at least you know what to expect. You can keep an eye out for their communications and you don't feel like you've been ghosted. So that's a really good point there about asking about the next steps. And then showing gratitude. Remember to say thank you at the end of your interview. Let them know that you appreciate their time, the opportunity that they took to even meet with you that day. And then follow up with a thank you email. Even if you want to share it, hey, thank you for highlighting this portion I wasn't aware of. I really appreciate the time spent and I'm looking forward to next steps. Something as simple as that just goes to show that, wow, you did find some value, and even just that one session with the employer, you're excited, you're, highlighting this, or if you even have another question after the interview, you can always include that on the email as well. But really just goes to show that, you left a good impression, and it is another level of your professionalism at hand.
I have to say, it's always really nice to get a follow-up email from a student just saying, hey, thanks for, the time to interview me. I had a great time talking to you or whatever. It's always very nice to receive those emails. So just FYI. All right. So, uh, we want to share a post-interview survey. Again, as I mentioned earlier at the beginning of our workshop, there's a survey, it's very short, but we have a QR code here, and we are hoping that you can assist us with answering a couple questions. For those who do complete and submit the survey, you will be entered into a raffle to win a gift card. So again, if you can scan this QR code, literally will take you less than 5 minutes to complete. That'd be greatly appreciated. Cheryl, did you want to add anything on this? No.
The link is also in the chat. If you guys are on from your mobile, feel free to go on the chat and the link is there for you guys.
Yeah.
Thanks, Rebecca.
While y'all are working on that, I would just add in that it might seem like, oh, it's like another survey, like why do I have to do this? But we literally use this information for grant reporting, for conferences and papers that we're writing, and it all contributes to being able to obtain potentially more funding, to give you guys more internships and to do workshops with you. So it definitely makes a huge difference when we're able to collect this information. So just take a couple minutes and fill it out. Appreciate you.
All right. So again, link is in the chat as well if you didn't get to scan the QR code. But Q&A time. So we definitely have a couple minutes left for any questions. You can feel free to unmute yourself, raise your hand, or you can go ahead and put a question in the chat and I will be checking that right now. Pamela.
Hi.
Hi.
Going. Yeah, so I had a quick question. I received a assessment through Cisco, and it it didn't say that it was a hacker rank or leak code assessment. It said something like on a platform called SHL. I'm not familiar with that. Do you guys know if there are any, well, is there anything that I should be studying before I take this assessment? Like leak code type of problems, data structures, algorithms, things like that?
Yeah, so specifically with the Cisco assessment, they haven't given us the information because there's different departments and every assessment's gonna be a little bit different. So they haven't given us like insight into like what each or what you need to know or like what you should come in with. However, they have told us that these assessments are really to get you into the system. They are not looking for you to ace this assessment. They just need you to do it. Right. So we've talked about this in extent with them because we're like, we know that it can deter students sometimes. You're like, oh no, like I don't know this. Like, what do I do? And then like you just end it and don't complete it. They just want you to get through it and do it, whether you get like 30% on it, they just need to do it because they are aware, they're a program partner. So they are to bring on STEM core students. So if that gives you any clarity into this, they haven't given us like outlines as to what you need to know. As a matter of fact, they're like, they don't need to know all of this, but it's just that we need them to complete this assessment because that's like a Cisco policy.
Okay. Thank you. It helps.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I know I'm getting a lot of questions on the side, and I assume that this might be some of the hands that are up. I haven't gotten a Cisco assessment. Nobody's reached out to me. Like, what do I do? There are some that are moving a little bit faster. There are some that are not. And even like, for instance, like let's use Cisco as an example. They might have gotten like a batch of resumes already, right, from us. They're still going to get more resumes from us. One department might be moving quicker than another department, and that's why Pamela was tapped for an assessment and you may not have been. But every student on this call is not going to Cisco, right? We work with like a lot of different employers. And also to clarify as well, that our internship application is still open through February 9th. So we know that we are still going to be collecting more resumes and more candidates that are going to be going to more employers. So just to give you clarity, that there are opportunities out there. Every student is not going to be moved on for an interview. So if somebody in your cohort got tapped for something already and you're like, well, I didn't get that link, you one, maybe match with somebody with another opportunity, or two, it could be possible that maybe we're thinking of another opportunity for you, or it might be better that you reconnect with the STEM core program and reapply next year. So all of that information is still TBD because we still have applications coming in. Just to give clarity. I know it's a confusing process and some of you are really anxious about it, but we're working through it because we've had Myra and Rebecca have interviewed upwards of
well over 250 students.
Yeah, it's a lot. So we're working through it and we're a super small team. So just bear with us.
Yeah. Next is Ann, I believe.
Yes. Hi. Hi. Yeah, I would like to have some questions. I just recently submit my resume just not long ago, and I was wondering that how long would the employer or the specific company will like send me an email and kind of and set up like a specific interview date?
You said
Yeah.
how long until they set something up with you?
Yes, yes, yes.
So one, to clarify again, so first round is with our growth sector staff. So have you done that one yet?
Growth sector staff, I think I haven't.
Okay, so that's the first step. So you will
Okay.
get an email from somebody in growth sector who asked you to set up a round one interview. So you'll do that first, and then from there, students are selected to move on to round two.
Yeah, okay. And also and probably uh I believe that there are some other like companies, like I do know one is like Lockheed Martin, but can you name me other companies that I may as you said, like do some research and know their backgrounds and all the kind of things to see that, you know, I can I can find where I fit in their companies, and also I can, you know, be more confident in some sort of way. Can you name me other companies? That's what I mean. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so the list is constantly changing and growing, but a lot of like the employers that have come on to talk to you guys already, for instance, like Caltrans, Stryker, Northrop, the national labs, like Berkeley National Lab, Lawrence Livermore National Lab, Cisco. So that's just a few of them already. I would encourage you to go on to our STEM Core YouTube channel, because that lists like all of the employers who've come on to talk to you guys about upcoming opportunities that they have. But I don't want you all to be stringent with just like those employers, because we're constantly being tapped by new employers for like, hey, like we would like to take on an intern as well. We tried to give you ample notice before an interview comes up, where it's like, hey, here's a new opportunity. Like take a look at them and see if you're interested in connecting with them if you're selected to move forward with that employer, if that makes sense.
Yes, yes,
And
yes.
again,
Okay.
we apologize. Like I know that you guys might be used to a process where like you go on and you do an application, you're able to see what exactly you'll do as an intern. But because we're working with so for instance, like let's use like Lawrence Livermore National Lab for an example. They have like their CCI application and a very structured internship program that all students across the country apply to. We work with select partners within the lab who are like, yes, like we love the STEM core and we are going to take on X number of interns directly from you all. Cheryl, send me their resumes, right? So it works a little bit differently, because then they're like, I'm going to match on with this mentor who I know would be a good fit for them. And that's sort of how it's working internally. So in some cases, you might be able to get in advance, this is the department you're going to, but in some cases, you might not get all of that information up front.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That helps a lot. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And then I did see a question in the chat. Should we expect to hear back sometime first week of March? Again, don't hold on to any, like we said, any deadline. Nothing's a hard deadline, because again, our goal is to have employers start to get back to you guys or us by March. But again, it can, some take a little longer to review things. We're still sending resumes. So I know that it can be a bit, annoying sometimes, but just be patient. Again, it's a process. So again, don't hold on to any, we don't have a specific week or date that you're going to hear back. So that's why we do say, make sure you just stay on top of your emails, check that. And that is one thing I do want to note. If you're not already in the habit, check your emails every day. Especially now being in college, and especially once you go into the workforce, just get in the habit of checking your emails every day. I know sometimes you may hear crickets from us, especially if you interviewed early on, like in October, November, and you haven't heard anything from us for a while. Again, it's because we've been interviewing so many students. And now that we're starting to send out resumes, responses from employers are trickling in. But sometimes things can go from 0 to 100 real quick. And so we may send out an email and we need to hear, it may require a fast response. So just make sure you stay on top of those emails and do respond if you get anything from Cheryl, from, STEM core email, from growth sector. Just make sure you stay on top of that.
I saw Eden ask, I was wondering, does the STEM course send our resumes beyond our top 3 company choices? We might not even get to your top 3 company choices, honestly, to be completely transparent. So you might be referring to your STEM core application that you submitted. And I think on the application, it asks like if you're your top 3 like dream companies, right? Great if we're working with them, but chances are we may not be working with them, right? And maybe you might not be a good fit for right now based on your qualifications for that employer. So we might say, hey, Eden, there's an opportunity here. Connect with this mentor who thinks you might be a good fit, and they set up an interview with you. That's how it might be. So yeah, we always encourage students to try to be flexible. You might have a certain company in mind, but also keep in mind that this is a learning opportunity as well. For a lot of you, this is your first internship, so it might not be your dream job. And that's okay. You're gaining experience, you're gaining technical skills, and maybe your next internship after that is more closely aligned with like your dream job. So I just encourage you all to be flexible as well.
Yeah. I see another question. If one misses an interview, is it possible to do it again? That's a great question. And I think, I don't know, Cheryl, does that depend?
In a first round interview or a second one with growth sector or one with an employer?
If you're talking about if you missed your first interview with the growth sector team, then yeah, there you can definitely reschedule again. Again, try to avoid missing them because again, we do take note of those things. But yes, you can definitely reschedule for an interview. Make sure to do that as soon as possible though, because our dates are coming to a close.
Yeah. And I know, Francisco, you clarified that it's with growth sector. I wouldn't, I can't promise that with round 2 with employers because we don't know how quickly they're moving on things. So if you've scheduled to meet with, again, I'll use like Cisco as an example for like Friday at 1 p.m. and like you miss it with like out any notice. Let's hope that they would be able to work with you to reschedule, but they also might have been like, this is our interview day and this is the time that we allotted and we're moving on. Right. So those are all just like lessons to learn and just making sure that you are staying on top of your schedules. It's all a learning experience, but just making sure that you are sticking to your commitments in your schedule.
And also, just so you guys don't think it's just like a growth sector interview thing. I myself have applied before working with growth sector. I worked at different community colleges and high schools and all that stuff. And I can tell you right now, anytime I've applied to a job, they always will connect with me and they'll say, hey, these are the times that we have available. It'll be very few in selected spots and they'll basically tell me you have to work something out, pick one and work it out. So this is not just like an us thing. This is very much like in the workplace thing. It's very common to just get, and you might think, wait, but I need to look, definitely look at your schedule and stuff. But I mean, at least with me, it's always happened where I need to figure something out and pick a date and make sure that that I work with that. Because again, you just don't know how many candidates you're up against and everything, or if they'll even give you another time of day. So you want to make sure you jump on those opportunities.
Great. Yeah, Becca, I'll send out, thanks for that. I'll send out the QR code and the follow-up email after this so you can disperse to your students. I was also going to add in, what was I going to say? The March. So we're saying that we're hoping that most of our employers will interview in March. It's what we've asked them to do. However, I can tell you right now that that always almost doesn't happen and can happen much later. There have been times where, let's use like Lawrence Livermore, for an example, because they're a great partner. They might say like, hey, Cheryl, we're going to bring on 15 interns this summer. And then we hear from them May 15th. Hey, we actually have funding and a placement for 5 more students. Who do you have? Right. And then all of a sudden we're tapping you again. So, or a new company might come up and say like, hey, like we've heard about you. Can we connect with your interns? Right. So just keeping March as like a possibility, but it can get pushed back past that. And I always encourage you all, I know you've heard it from Myron and Rebecca in your first interviews, is that you should really be applying for opportunities outside of STEM core and outside of growth sector. That's just how it is with job searching, right? And opportunities. We work with a number of employers, but there are a number of employers outside of that you should be reaching out to. I would also encourage you that if you are in a process that's moved a little bit faster, and you have an opportunity that you want to accept, go ahead and like we're happy for you. We want you to be able to do that, but just let us know as well so that we can pull you out of our process and leave that opportunity open for another STEM course student.
Yeah. Again, we definitely try our hardest to well, we do communicate consistently with their employers, and we know that a lot of you are trying to plan for summer classes or vacation or things like that. We definitely take all that into consideration, and trust me when I say that Cheryl does an amazing job in connecting with employers and trying to have them stay on top of things. But a lot of times things are out of our hands and out of our control, and we just kind of have to keep sending reminders to employers. Hey, can you let us know who you are thinking about offering a second round interview to? Because again, we do respect your time. We do respect and understand that you guys have things to plan for as well. But just know that there's certain things that are out of our control. But we're definitely here. If you guys have any questions or concerns, feel free to email any of us. I'm sure you've heard from us before, so if you have one of our emails, feel free to reach out. But again, just a reminder, if you could, definitely we sent the link for the very short questionnaire survey. So if you could do that, that'd be appreciated. But we hope that you found this helpful. We will make sure to stick it up on our YouTube channel, so definitely check that out, as well as other previous workshops that we've done. And just wishing you the best of luck. All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of
Have a
your
great
Friday.
weekend.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.
Of course.
Thank you all for joining.